We all know the feeling, that sense that we're just not enough, like we don't measure up. It feels like a part of us, right? You may have carried it for years, maybe even for as long as you can remember. It's the feeling that no matter how much you do, how hard you try, or how far you push yourself, you're just not quite good enough. But here's the thing. What if I told you that this feeling, this belief, isn't really you at all? What if it's not a permanent part of who you are? It may feel like it's part of your personality, something that defines you, but it's not. This belief is something your mind has learned over time, maybe from old experiences or things others have told you, and it's shaped how you see yourself. But once you begin to see it for what it is, something that's learned and not inherent, it loses its power over you. What if you could change that? What if you could stop believing you're not enough and start living in a way that aligns with who you truly are? In this moment, you can begin to break free from that limiting belief that has kept you stuck. You can stop identifying with it. The first step? Realizing it's not a part of you. It's just something that's been planted in your mind, a habit that doesn't serve you anymore. Living with the belief that you're not good enough doesn't just affect your thoughts or feelings, it impacts everything in your life. When you feel like you're not enough, you end up constantly searching for ways to prove yourself. You might find yourself hiding away from challenges or opportunities because you fear you'll fail. You might even avoid putting yourself out there in the world, convinced that you won't measure up. You also might overwork, thinking that if you do enough, you'll finally be enough. But the truth is, no amount of external achievement can make you feel enough if you still carry that internal belief. You might find yourself constantly chasing validation from others, waiting for someone to tell you that you're doing a good job, that you matter. But what happens when the validation doesn't come, or when it doesn't feel real enough? You're back to square one, feeling like you're still not enough. This feeling can even creep into your spiritual practices. You might find yourself trying to be better spiritually, feeling like you're not doing enough or aren't spiritual enough. Maybe you feel like you should always be calm, always positive, or always in control. You may think that if you aren't at a certain level of spiritual development, you're failing. But here's the catch. This belief, this pressure to be better, can actually block you from truly connecting with your spirituality. It becomes just another way to judge yourself, and in doing so, you miss the deeper, more peaceful truth that spirituality is about embracing yourself as you are, not as someone who needs to be fixed. If you stay stuck in the feeling of not enough, you may never allow yourself to fully enjoy the life you're meant to live. The work, the relationships, the personal growth, it can all feel like a race to prove something to others or even to yourself. But the truth is, this feeling of inadequacy keeps you in a cycle of striving and never truly resting in the peace of knowing that you are enough, just as you are. The more you carry this belief, the more it dictates your actions, your relationships, and your view of the world. And before you know it, you're living a life that's defined not by joy and fulfillment, but by the need to prove you're good enough. At its core, the feeling of not good enough is a story. It's a belief that your worth is somehow conditional, that you must be something, achieve something, or change something about yourself before you can feel worthy. It's not a fact, but a belief that your mind has adopted over time, usually based on early experiences or messages from society, family, or friends. But it's important to understand that beliefs are not permanent. They are not truths. They're simply ideas your mind has latched onto and reinforced over time. When you feel not good enough, it's easy to think that there's something wrong with you. But in reality, this feeling is a learned response. It's something that's been shaped by the world around you. Perhaps you were told you weren't good enough in some way. Maybe you didn't do something as well as someone expected, or you were compared to others who seemed to have it all together. These things can stick with you, even if you don't consciously remember them. They leave an imprint on your mind, and over time, they create a pattern of thinking that tells you you're not enough. This thought pattern doesn't reflect your true worth. It's just a lens you've been looking through. The first thing to understand is that thoughts are not who you are. The idea that you're not good enough is just one of many thoughts that arise in your mind, and just like any other thought, it can be let go of. You can choose not to identify with it. Understanding that not good enough is a belief and not a truth is the first step in breaking free from its grip. This belief is based on the idea that you're lacking something, that you need to be different or better in some way to be worthy of love, success, and happiness. But in reality, this idea only keeps you trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. The truth is, you are already enough just as you are. The first step to healing is realizing that this feeling of not good enough isn't a reflection of your true self, but a mistaken belief that can be released. And once you begin to recognize this, you can begin to let go of it and step into a new, more empowered way of being. That feeling of not being good enough does not appear out of nowhere. It is not something you were born with. It is something the mind learns. And the mind learns through repetition, through moments that leave a mark, and through the need to stay safe. Most people think this belief means something is wrong with me, but very often it really means at some point my mind decided this belief would help me survive emotionally. The mind does not only want you to be happy, the mind wants you to be protected. And if it thinks a certain belief will keep you from being rejected, embarrassed, or abandoned, it will keep that belief running even if it hurts you. One common way this belief begins is through early experiences of approval and disapproval. When you are young, you are learning what gets you love and what takes love away. Maybe you got praised when you were quiet, polite, helpful, or successful. Maybe you got attention when you achieved something, and less attention when you were just being yourself. Even if nobody meant harm, the pattern can still form. The mind learns, if I do this, I'm safe. If I don't do this, I'm at risk. Over time, safety starts to feel like being good enough, and being good enough starts to feel like earning love. Another way this belief forms is through criticism. It does not have to be harsh or extreme. Sometimes it's small comments that repeat again and again. Things like, why can't you be more like, or you're too sensitive, or you're not trying hard enough. Even if those words were said in anger or meant as motivation, the mind can take them as a message about identity. It stops being about what you did, and it turns into who you are. The mind starts to hold an idea like, I am not enough as I am. And once the mind holds that idea, it begins to look for proof, because that's what the mind does. It tries to make the world match what it believes. Comparison is another powerful teacher of this belief. Many people learn to compare themselves before they even knew they were doing it. You see someone else praised and you think, why not me? You see someone else succeed and you think, I must be behind. You see someone else get loved easily and you think, something about me must be missing. Comparison makes you feel like life is a race, and your value is your position in the race. Even if you win sometimes, the mind still fears losing, so it keeps pushing, it keeps judging, it keeps telling you to become more, do more, fix more. That's how not good enough becomes a constant background noise. It also comes from the way society talks about worth. Many messages in the world suggest that your value depends on how you look, how much you earn, how productive you are, how talented you are, or how impressive your life seems. You don't even have to believe these messages fully for them to shape you. If you hear them enough, the mind begins to treat them like rules, and if you don't match the rule, the mind says you are failing. So the belief grows stronger. I'm not good enough, not because it's true, but because the mind thinks it must measure itself to stay accepted. And there is another deeper layer that many people miss. Sometimes the belief forms because of emotional pain you could not fully process at the time. A moment of rejection, a breakup, a friendship ending, being left out, being laughed at, being misunderstood. When pain happens and you don't know how to hold it, the mind often makes a simple meaning out of it. It happened because of me. The mind would rather blame you than accept uncertainty, because blame feels like control. If the mind can say, it's my fault, it can also say, then I can fix it by becoming better. That's how not good enough can become a coping strategy. It's painful, but it gives the mind a plan. Change yourself, then you won't get hurt again. So when you look at this belief, try to see it clearly. It is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that your mind learned a pattern that tried to protect you, a pattern that tried to help you fit in, be loved, and avoid pain. The problem is not that the mind learned it. The problem is that the mind kept it long after you needed it, and now it runs your life in ways you don't even notice. The most important part is this: if it was learned, it can be unlearned. But you can't unlearn it by fighting yourself. You unlearn it by understanding it, by seeing it, and by not feeding it anymore. You begin by noticing, this belief has a history. It is not my identity. Even if you never say the words, I'm not good enough, out loud, this belief shows itself in daily habits. It shows itself in your choices, your reactions, and the way you treat yourself inside your own mind. And if you don't recognize these patterns, you may think you're just being normal or careful or responsible. But many times, these habits are really the belief wearing a mask. They are ways your mind tries to avoid the pain of not feeling enough while still keeping the belief alive. One common pattern is perfection. Perfection is not the same as doing your best. Perfection is fear with a fancy name. It's the feeling that if something isn't flawless, it's not safe to show it. So you over-edit, you delay, you fix small details again and again. You tell yourself, I'll start when I'm ready, but you never feel ready. And deep down, the real fear is not the task. The real fear is what failure would mean about you. If you already believe you're not good enough, then any mistake feels like proof. So the mind tries to avoid mistakes by controlling everything. But that control becomes a cage. Another pattern is overworking. Many people who don't feel good enough become addicted to effort. They feel guilty when resting. They feel uncomfortable when doing nothing. Even when they achieve something, they don't let it land. They move the goalpost. They say, yes, but I should be doing more. Overworking can look like ambition, but inside, it often feels heavy. It feels like you're trying to earn your right to exist. And the most painful part is that no matter how much you do, the feeling doesn't fully go away, because the belief is still there, still whispering, not enough. Another pattern is people-pleasing. When you don't feel good enough, you may start trying to become what others want. You try to be easy, helpful, agreeable. You say yes when you mean no. You laugh when something hurts. You avoid conflict even when you need to speak. You do this because approval feels like relief. It feels like safety. But the cost is that you slowly abandon yourself. And then the mind says, see, even you don't choose you. People-pleasing can make you feel accepted on the outside while feeling invisible on the inside. Another pattern is fear of being seen. This one is quiet but powerful. You may have ideas, talents, opinions, or dreams, but you hold back. You don't post the thing. You don't apply. You don't speak up. You don't try. Not because you don't want to, but because you fear judgment. And again, it's not just fear of judgment, it's fear that judgment will confirm what you already believe. So you stay small, you stay safe. But staying small doesn't feel safe forever. It starts to feel like regret. Another pattern is constant comparison. You look at someone else's life and feel behind. You look at someone else's confidence and feel less than. You look at someone else's success and feel like a failure. Even when you know people only show their highlights, the feeling still hits you. Comparison becomes a habit because the mind is searching for a clear answer to a painful question: where do I stand? But the question itself is the trap, because the moment you measure your worth, you have already forgotten it. There is also a pattern of overthinking. When you don't feel good enough, you may try to think your way into being safe. You rehearse conversations. You replay moments. You analyze how you came across. You worry about what people meant. You worry about what you should do next. The mind is trying to prevent rejection by predicting everything, but life cannot be predicted, so the mind becomes tired and you become stuck. And there is one more pattern that many people don't notice: rejecting compliments or success. If someone praises you, you brush it off. If something goes well, you tell yourself it was luck. If you achieve something, you don't celebrate. You criticize what wasn't perfect. Why? Because accepting goodness can feel risky when you don't feel worthy. The mind thinks, if I accept this, I'll get comfortable, then I'll fall, then it will hurt more. So it stays guarded, it stays tense, it stays in the familiar pain of not enough, because familiar pain feels safer than unknown joy. These patterns matter because they keep the belief alive. They don't just come from not good enough, they also feed it. Each time you hide, you send yourself a message: I shouldn't be seen. Each time you people please, you send yourself a message: my needs don't matter. Each time you overwork, you send yourself a message: I must earn love. And your mind listens to your actions more than your words. So even if you say affirmations, if your daily behavior is still shaped by fear, the belief stays strong. The goal here is not to judge yourself for these patterns. The goal is to recognize them, because when you can see the pattern, you can interrupt it, and that is where freedom begins. Now let's talk about something very important, especially if you are on a spiritual path. Many people turn to spirituality because they want peace, they want healing, they want to feel connected, they want to understand themselves and life more deeply. And that is a beautiful intention. But there is a hidden danger. The same not good enough belief can follow you into spirituality and put on a new costume. It can turn your spiritual path into a self-improvement prison. It can start in simple ways. You meditate and your mind is busy, so you think, I'm bad at meditation. You try to stay present and you get triggered, so you think, I'm not healed. You try to be kind and you feel anger, so you think, I'm not spiritual enough. You hear teachings about peace, surrender, love, or awakening, and the mind turns them into rules. It says, you should be calm all the time. You should be grateful all the time. You should not feel negative emotions. You should be above this. And now spirituality becomes another scoreboard. When spirituality becomes a scoreboard, you start using it to measure your worth. Instead of using it to come home to yourself, you use it to escape yourself. You try to rise above your humanity instead of holding it with love. You try to force light on top of pain instead of letting pain be seen. You try to think positive when what you really need is honesty. And slowly, the spiritual path begins to feel like pressure not freedom. This is why some people feel worse after getting into spiritual content, not because spirituality is harmful, but because the mind uses it the same way it uses everything else, to chase worth. If the mind believes I am not enough, it will use even the most beautiful practices to try to become enough. It will turn healing into a race. It will turn growth into a competition. It will turn awakening into an identity. And if you can't keep up with the ideal image of what a spiritual person should look like, you feel shame. Another part of the spiritual trap is the idea that you must get rid of your ego completely. The mind hears ego is bad and thinks, I must destroy parts of myself. But fighting yourself is not awakening. Hating your ego is still ego. Real spiritual growth is not about cutting yourself into good parts and bad parts. It's about seeing clearly. It's about bringing awareness to your patterns and meeting them with understanding. The ego is not an enemy. The ego is a set of learned protections. It becomes softer when it feels safe. It becomes calmer when it is seen, not attacked. Also, many people use spiritual practices to avoid real feelings. They use spiritual ideas as a way to not feel grief, anger, fear, or loneliness. They try to rise above emotions instead of sitting with them, but emotions don't disappear when you ignore them. They stay in the body. They show up as tension, tiredness, stress, and triggers. Then you feel confused. I meditate, I pray, I read spiritual teachings, so why do I still feel heavy? The answer is simple. You cannot bypass being human. The spiritual path is not a way to avoid pain. It is a way to hold pain with awareness so it can move through you. And here is the deepest part of this. The belief I'm not good enough often hides behind spiritual goals. The mind might say, once I heal, then I'll be enough. Or, once I awaken, then I'll feel whole. Or, once I stop having negative thoughts, then I'll be worthy. But can you see what's happening? The mind is placing your worth in the future. It is saying, you are not enough now, but you might be enough later if you fix yourself. That is the same old belief, just dressed in spiritual words. Real spirituality is not about becoming worthy. It is about remembering you already are. It is not about forcing yourself into constant peace. It is about making space for everything inside you, peace and pain, clarity and confusion, love and fear, without turning any of it into proof that you are failing. So if you notice that your spiritual path has started to feel heavy, like a job, like a constant project to improve yourself, pause. That heaviness is not truth. It is the old belief trying to stay alive. And the way out is not more pressure. The way out is more honesty, more softness, more acceptance. Because the moment you stop using spirituality to prove yourself, spirituality becomes what it was meant to be, a return to your natural wholeness, right here, right now, as you are. Here is the most important shift you can make, and it is simple but deep. You do not feel good enough because you are actually not good enough. You feel not good enough because the mind is repeating a message and you have been believing it. That's it. The pain comes from believing the thought, not from the thought existing. Thoughts can be loud, thoughts can be scary, thoughts can sound convincing, but a thought is still just a thought. It is not a fact. It is not a final truth about who you are. It is not your identity. A lot of people live like they are their thoughts. They don't say it out loud, but they act like it. The mind says, you're not good enough, and the body reacts with shame. The mind says, you'll mess it up, and the body reacts with fear. The mind says, people will judge you, and the body tightens and wants to hide. And because the body reacts, it feels real. This is why this belief is so powerful. It is not only words in your head. It becomes a feeling in your chest, a heaviness in your stomach, a tightness in your throat. So you start to assume it must be true. But feelings are not proof. Feelings are signals. They are energy moving through you based on what the mind is focusing on. Think about how many thoughts you have in one day. Thousands. Some are kind, some are harsh, some are random, some are old memories, some are worries about the future. Do you believe all of them? Of course not. If the mind says jump into the ocean right now, you don't do it. If the mind says everyone hates you, you don't automatically accept it as truth. You might feel it, yes. You might get anxious, yes. But part of you knows the mind can exaggerate. The problem is that when it comes to worth, many people treat the mind like it's always correct. They treat the mind like a judge, and they treat themselves like they are on trial every day. Spirituality, at its heart, is learning to step back from that inner judge. Not by forcing silence, not by fighting thoughts, not by pretending you don't have emotions, but by noticing, by becoming aware, by seeing the difference between awareness and the mind's noise. The mind is a tool. It creates stories. It sorts things into categories. It tries to predict danger. It tries to protect you, but awareness is larger than the mind. Awareness is the part that can watch the mind without becoming it. So the truth is not, you must become worthy. The truth is, you already have worth, and the mind is simply not seeing it clearly right now. The mind is looking through an old lens. It is using old memories and old rules to judge the present moment. And once you see this, something changes. You begin to realize, this belief is not me. It is something passing through me. This is not about repeating a nice sentence until you feel better. This is about changing your relationship with thoughts. Because the thought, I'm not good enough, may still show up sometimes. But it does not have to control you. It does not have to decide your mood, your choices, your confidence, or your future. The goal is not to never have the thought again. The goal is to stop treating it like a boss. There is a quiet power in learning to say, a thought is here, instead of saying, this is who I am. There is a huge difference between, I am not good enough, and I am having the thought that I am not good enough. That small difference creates space, and in that space, you become free. Because when you see it as a thought, you can choose what to do next. You can breathe, you can soften, you can come back to the present, you can act from your values instead of from fear. And here is the deeper spiritual point. The real you is not a score. The real you is not a list of achievements. The real you is not how productive you were today. The real you is not how perfect you look or how calm you seem. The real you is the one who is aware of all of it. The one who can see, the one who can feel, the one who can learn, the one who can love. That part of you was never broken. It only got covered up by noise. When you truly understand this, you stop trying to fix your existence. You start relating to yourself with more kindness, not because you are making excuses, but because you finally see the truth. You were never unworthy. You were just caught in a belief. Now, knowing the truth is powerful, but the mind has habits, and habits change through practice. So here is a simple practice you can use anytime the not good enough feeling shows up. It is not complicated. It does not require hours. It is something you can do in real life, in real moments, while still being a normal person with a normal day. The practice has 4 steps: notice, name, allow, return. First, notice. This means catching the moment when the belief is active. Most people don't notice it. They just become it. 1 second they are fine, and the next second they are small, tense, worried, and judging themselves. Noticing is the first win, because when you notice, you step out of automatic mode. You don't have to solve anything yet. You just have to see what's happening. You can say inside, oh, this is that feeling again. Second, name. Give it a simple label, not a dramatic story, not a long analysis, just a label. You can say, this is the not good enough story, or this is shame, or this is comparison, or this is fear. Naming does two things. It makes the experience clearer and it creates distance. When you name it, you are no longer drowning in it. You are holding it in your awareness. Third, allow. This is the step most people skip because they think allowing means agreeing. It does not. Allowing means you stop fighting the feeling. You stop telling yourself you shouldn't feel it. You stop pushing it away. You stop trying to instantly replace it with a positive thought. You simply let it be there for a moment without feeding it more, because when you fight a feeling, it often grows stronger. When you allow it, it can move through you. Allowing can sound like, okay, this is here, I can feel this. It can sound like, this is uncomfortable, but I can breathe with it. It can sound like, I don't need to fix this in 1 second. This is very spiritual because it is acceptance of the present moment. Not a fake acceptance, not a forced smile, but a real acceptance that says, I can be with what is true right now. As you allow, bring attention to the body. Where do you feel it? Chest, stomach, throat, face? Just notice the sensations, not the story, the sensations. The mind wants to explain, blame, judge, and predict, but the body just feels. When you bring gentle attention to the body, the mind loses some control. You are no longer only in your head. You return to the real moment. Fourth, return. Return to the present. Return to what matters. Return to your next small, healthy action. This is important. Returning does not mean you suddenly feel amazing. Returning means you stop letting the belief run the show. You come back to now. You can ask, what is one small thing I can do from calm? Or what is one honest step I can take right now? Or what would I do if I didn't believe this thought? Then you do that even if the feeling is still there. This practice works because it changes your identity. You stop being a person who is trapped inside the thought. You become the person who can witness the thought. And when you can witness it, it begins to weaken. The mind learns, this thought can appear and I don't have to obey it. That is freedom. Here is an example of how it might look in real life. Imagine you want to speak up, but you feel not good enough. The mind says, don't, you'll sound stupid. Your stomach tightens. Old shame appears. Instead of collapsing into it, you pause. You notice, not good enough is here. You name it. This is fear. You allow, I can feel fear and still breathe. You return, I will speak one sentence. And you do it. That one moment rewires you more than 100 hours of overthinking. The goal is not to become fearless overnight. The goal is to become free enough to choose, free enough to live, free enough to act from your heart instead of from the old program. And if you want to make it even simpler, here is one sentence you can use in the middle of the practice. This is a feeling, not a fact. Say it gently, not like you are fighting the mind, like you are reminding yourself of truth. Then breathe slowly once or twice. That small moment can change the direction of your entire day. Even after you understand all of this, the pattern may come back. And this is where many people get stuck. They think, if I'm still feeling this, I must be failing. They think, if I was truly healing, I wouldn't have this thought anymore. But that is the trap. That is the old belief using your healing against you. The return of the thought does not mean you are broken. It means you are human. It means the mind is repeating what it learned, and you are now learning a new way to respond. Healing is not a straight line. Some days you feel light, some days you feel heavy, some days you feel strong, some days you feel sensitive. The mind may use any hard day as proof that you're not enough, but the truth is the opposite. Hard days are part of growth. They are not proof of failure. They are practice. So when it comes back, the first thing to do is remove shame from the process. Shame makes the pattern stronger. Shame says, I shouldn't be like this. Shame says, something is wrong with me. Shame makes you hide, and hiding makes you feel alone, and loneliness makes the belief deeper. Instead, respond with respect and kindness. You can say, "Of course this is here. This is an old habit." That one sentence can change everything. It turns the moment from a crisis into a normal part of healing. The second thing is to stop arguing with the mind. Many people try to debate the thought. They try to prove it wrong. They look for evidence that they are enough. And sometimes that helps, but often it keeps you trapped in the same game, measuring worth. The mind says, "Not enough," and you reply, "Yes, I am." And now you are still talking about worth as if it needs proof. A deeper approach is to step out of the argument completely. Instead of proving the thought wrong, you simply stop giving it authority. You treat it like background noise. You can even use a gentle phrase like, "Thank you, mind." Not sarcastically, genuinely, because the mind is trying to protect you in its own outdated way. Then you return to your breath, your body, and your next step. This is powerful because it breaks the cycle. You stop feeding the thought with attention, and it begins to fade. The third thing is to watch the evidence trap in daily life. The mind loves to collect proof. If you make one mistake, it says, "See." If you get one rejection, it says, "Told you." If someone looks at you in a certain way, the mind creates a story. This happens fast, and if you don't catch it, your whole mood changes based on a guess. When you notice you are collecting proof, pause and return to what is real. Ask, what do I actually know for sure? Most of the time, the mind is filling in blanks with fear. The fourth thing is to stay consistent with small acts of self-trust. Many people wait to feel confident before they act, but confidence is built by action, not by waiting. Each time you act with self-respect, you teach your nervous system safety. You teach your mind, "I can handle life." Even small actions matter. Saying no once, speaking up once, resting without guilt once, sharing your truth with one safe person. Each small act is like placing a brick in a new foundation. And here is a key point. This belief often lives in the body, not just the mind. So when it comes back, support the body. Slow your breathing. Relax your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Put your hand on your chest for a few seconds. Remind your body, "I am safe right now." The body needs safety to release old patterns. This is why kindness works better than pressure. Pressure tells the body danger is near. Kindness tells the body it can relax. If you are around people who trigger this belief, be careful with how much you absorb. You don't need to prove yourself to everyone. You don't need everyone to understand you. Some people will always see you through their own filters. Protect your inner space. That is not selfish. That is wise. Spirituality is not being open to harm. Spirituality is being rooted in truth while staying gentle. And finally, remember the real goal, not to never feel insecure again, but to stop letting insecurity decide your life. You may still feel the wave sometimes, but now you have a surfboard. Now you can ride it. Now you can meet it with awareness instead of panic. And each time you do, you are not going backward. You are getting stronger. Because the biggest shift is not that the thought disappears. The biggest shift is that you stop believing it. You stop living under it. You stop treating it as a final statement about you. And in that space, something new grows. A quiet trust that does not need to be perfect to be real. Right now, the most important thing is not to fix yourself. The most important thing is to choose how you will relate to yourself from this point forward. Because the way you treat yourself in your own mind shapes everything, your energy, your choices, your relationships, and the kind of life you allow yourself to live. The old way is automatic. The inner judge, the pressure, the constant checking, the constant measuring. The new way is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming honest, present, and kind. It is about seeing the not good enough voice as a habit, not as truth, and choosing to stop building your life around it. So make a simple commitment that you can actually keep, not a big promise that turns into more pressure, something small and real. Decide that when the old belief shows up, you will not attack yourself. Decide that when you notice shame, you will pause instead of rushing to hide. Decide that when your mind starts comparing, you will come back to your own path. Decide that you will practice notice, name, allow, and return, one moment at a time. This is how you rewire the pattern. This is how you stop feeding the old program. This is how your spirit begins to feel safe inside your body again. You don't need to wait until you feel confident to begin. You begin so that confidence can grow. You don't need to wait until the thought disappears. You practice so the thought loses its authority. And you don't need to do this alone in your head. Bring it into your life in the smallest ways. When you catch yourself being harsh, soften your tone. When you feel you must prove yourself, breathe and slow down. When you feel you are behind, remind yourself, growth is not a race. When you fall into the old pattern, don't turn it into a failure story. Turn it into a return. Each return is a win. If you want to anchor this in something clear, use one simple line as your daily reminder. I will not measure my worth today. Say it in the morning. Say it when you feel the old pressure. Say it when you make a mistake. Say it when you feel small. You are not trying to force a feeling. You are choosing a direction. The mind may still bring the old message, but you will stop letting it decide who you are. And if you're ready to commit, write this in the comments. I choose to be gentle with myself. Not because life is easy, not because you never struggle, but because you are done using struggle as proof that you are failing. Like the video, if this helped you understand yourself more deeply. Subscribe if you want more simple, deep, spiritual explanations that bring you back to clarity, calm, and truth. The belief I'm not good enough has taken enough from you. It has stolen peace from moments that were meant to be simple. It has made you doubt your gifts. It has made you shrink when you were meant to expand. It has made you chase approval when you were meant to stand in your own truth. But the deeper truth is this: you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not failing at life. You are simply waking up to a pattern that has been running for too long. When you stop believing the thought, you don't become someone new. You return to who you were before the mind learned fear. You return to your natural state, alive, aware, worthy, and whole. Not because you earned it, because it was always there. And every time you notice the pattern without obeying it, every time you allow the feeling without making it your identity, every time you return to the present instead of the old story, you are choosing freedom. Keep it simple. Keep it real. One breath, one moment, one soft return. That is how the old voice gets quieter. That is how your heart becomes safer. That is how you finally start living like you belong in your own life.